On today's episode of the Mark Titus Show, Jrue Holiday is a Boston Celtic, and the Celtics are the best team in the East now. Or are they? I don't know, because the Bucks also signed Cameron Payne after getting Dame Lillard. So maybe they're better, but also the Celtics have gotten a lot better. But also, what about the Miami Heat? They're the team that went to the NBA Finals. Are they the best team in the East? But also, what about the no, never mind. Definitely not the Sixers. Jason Timpf joins the show. Jason Timpf does a podcast for The Volume. He's been on the show a handful of times. Great basketball mind. He's awesome. I love talking to him most of the time. Sometimes I feel stupid when I talk to him because he knows way more than I do about this sport. But Jason Timpf joined me to talk about Dame Lillard to the Bucks, Jrue Holiday to the Celtics, a handful of other stuff going on in the NBA. I asked him about DeAndre Ayton because I'm always going to be fascinated by DeAndre Ayton. Just, very relevant college basketball player who gets drafted number one, and he's kind of relevant, but kind of not. And he gets traded, and no one's really talking about that. Not that they should, but it's just a weird deal that DeAndre Ayton was part of this whole trade and is now in Portland. And I don't know. So I asked him about that. Is this the last we've really seen of DeAndre Ayton? Talked about the Suns a little bit. Talked about the Lakers, of course. You have to talk about LeBron. Jason's the best. Had a great conversation with him about all things NBA. 3 weeks away, I think. I think the NBA tips off in 3 weeks, if you would believe it. It sneaks up on you. A lot of people don't care until Christmas. I don't blame you, but I care. I don't know. I get every time I feel like I talk about the NBA, TJ, I feel like I got to do the disclaimer of yes, it is true. I have shit on this league a lot on air, a lot. I understand that, but as a reminder, folks, I do like the league. At my core, I'm an NBA fan. It's just me being a fan is why I think I hate it so much at times. So yeah, if you're surprised by me liking the NBA, continue to be more surprised because I will continue to follow this league and enjoy it. 3 weeks away, it's going to start. Media days were today. Anyway, with all that being said, let's talk to Jason Timpf about some of these trades going on and the season that is to come in the NBA. All right, Jason Timpf is here. You can smell it. You can feel it. You can just close your eyes and you can taste it almost. The NBA is back. We got media days going on. We finally, at long last, the Damian Lillard trade happens, which has kind of just been lingering over the league for so long. The trigger gets pulled on that. Not to be outdone, the Blazers bring in, the Celtics get Jrue Holiday from the Blazers as part of the trade. A lot of happenings going on. I had to bring in Jason Timpf to talk about it because the NBA it's back. It's coming back in a few weeks. I guess let's start with Dame. What's your initial reaction? You see the report. Was this a surprise to you? It was a surprise. It was shocking to me that he's going to the Bucks, but I'm also not living in this world at all times. What was your immediate reaction when you saw Damian Lillard to the Bucks?
Well, before I get too critical here, I should ask you: do you think it's a good trade? Are you high on it for the Bucks?
Yeah, I think
I'm about to start making fun of the people that are galaxy branding this.
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's really this simple to me. Now you have a pick and roll partner that you have to put two on the ball, and Jrue Holiday was a very productive pick and roll player last year. I pulled the numbers yesterday, but there were 30-something players who ran at least 750 pick and rolls in the NBA last year, and Jrue actually ranked fourth in points per possession. He had really good chemistry with Brook Lopez. He shot really well with his pull-up three-point shot last year. But I'm watching the tape, and they're running the most basic drop coverage against Jrue because every other defensive coach is we like Jrue, he's a good player, but we'd live with him, taking these shots, right? And you just simply cannot do that to Dame.
Yeah.
If you ran that coverage on Dame, he'd score 1.7 points per possession. He'd be shooting 55% on pull-up threes. He'd be getting downhill and killing teams. So it really is this simple. You have to show high or put two on the ball against Dame, which is just going to create absolute nightmare scenarios for the back line of your defense with Giannis barreling downhill with three good offensive players around him. Obviously, they got to shore up the two-guard position. Presumably right now they're thinking Pat Connaughton. I think I keep an eye on Reggie Bullock. He just got bought out by the Spurs. He's a guy that I'd look at there, especially since they're kind of weak in point of attack defense. And there are definitely some weird matchup things going on because I think the Bucks are weirdly set up to beat Denver.
Yeah.
But Boston's going to give them all kinds of issues with their perimeter defense. So the league has a ton of parity now, man. We had three teams load up, right? We had the Suns load up, we had the Bucks load up, and the Celtics load up. the Nuggets looked unbeatable last year and ran it back, and then the Lakers added all this depth. So it's like there's just so much parity at the top of the league now.
Which is what you want if you're a casual fan of the league, I have to imagine. So that's very exciting. Oh, you mentioned the defense. I think this is the I was Jason. I was high on this trade for the Bucks. I thought if you can go out and get Damian Lillard, you should do it. But I guess like this is stars teaming up or stars getting traded to a team with another. This is nothing new in the league, and we've seen it work. We've seen it not work. There are times where two super talented guys get thrown on a team and they just don't gel together. So if you're trying to nitpick and you're trying to say like this is how it could go wrong, and this is a way that removing Jrue Holiday, putting in Damian Lillard. Yes, he's a better player individually, but what does it do to like undo some of the synergy that this Bucks team may or may not have had? If you were to nitpick it and say like this is a way that maybe they're not going to regret the trade. Obviously, you had to do it. Giannis was getting antsy, and it's Damian freaking Lillard. But if there's a world where you're like, maybe they kind of do miss Jrue Holiday, like what does that look like to you?
It's the perimeter defense piece. So like think of it like this: in a Celtics series, let's just look 2 years ago. You have Jrue Holiday as an option to put on one of the Jays, right? Like you're probably putting Jrue Holiday on Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum and having Chris Middleton guard the other. And now that's just not an option anymore. Like you're not going to put Dame on one of those guys. So What that means is Giannis Antetokounmpo, who they prefer to keep as a low man. So like they prefer to keep Giannis Antetokounmpo guarding a non-shooter in the weak side corner so that he can help at the rim in pick and roll and also recover out to shooters. He's like one of like 2 or 3 guys in the league who can successfully do both without leaving an opening, right? But you can't do that anymore. He's going to have to guard probably Jaylen Brown, and he's going to have to slide those feet, and he's going to have to guard on the perimeter, which is, of all the things he does defensively, probably the one thing he's not great at. He can guard bigger, stronger players. We've seen him have success guarding the LeBrons and the bully ball players. He had some success guarding Kawhi last year. But when it comes to the really quick guys, he can have some trouble there. And so I think perimeter defense will be the thing. But like at the end of the day, you have to contend with them on the other end of the floor too. So it's not fair to be like, oh, they're going to have trouble guarding on the perimeter when you accept the reality that like, let's bring Kristaps Porzingis up and pick and roll against Dame Lillard and see how that goes. You know what I mean? So like it goes both ways is the simple way.
And I said on the show we did last week, like when it went down, that Giannis is, for as great as he is, and I do love Giannis, he might be in terms of like the all-time superstars that exist in this league, he might be like one of the few guys where you cannot just throw him the ball and say, go create offense and go carry us because our offense is stalled. Like when the Bucks try to do that, like Giannis, I do love him. This isn't a criticism. I'm not like, I'm not being a Bucks hater. This is how I feel. His version of creating offense is just putting his head down and trying to use his freakish athletic abilities. And so to have a guy now in Dame, because I think like Middleton would get put in those spots where it's like, okay, so Chris, you go do it. And he's like, I'm not that guy. And Jrue is like, I'm also not that guy. And so now to have a guy like Dame who's like, I very much am that guy, it's super exciting. And I think like, yeah, that was this is not just like a situation where like, let's just collect the best players we can find and hope that it works out together. I feel like Damian Lillard and Giannis are perfect for one another and perfect for, especially like on the offensive end. I mean, especially, that's the correct read. Like these two guys, this is not going to be a situation where, a lot of times, and we'll talk about the Phoenix Suns in a second, but a lot of times like you get, great basketball players on the same team and then you're like, yeah, but there's only one ball. This is not that, right?
It's a perfect synergy on the offensive end of the floor. Giannis actually has declined a little bit as a half-court shot creator in the last couple of years. He, in 2021, and this is the thing, it's so hard to do this as a front office, but like you kind of have to separate the way we look at the accomplishment from the realities of the accomplishment. Like they won the title in 2021. It's a legit title. I'm not undercutting it. I'm not trying to minimize the accomplishment. But you faced a Nets team that was down Kyrie Irving, and James Harden had the hamstring injury, right? You got to face an Atlanta Hawks team in the conference finals because Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, peed down their leg in the conference semis, right? And then you got to face again a very good Phoenix Suns team, but with no top 10 players on the roster. So like when push came to shove, he didn't have to go toe to toe with the Steph or a Jokic or like one of those top tier half court shot creators, right? So like you can acknowledge the success and celebrate it while being like, okay, but what are we gonna do now? Because in order to get out of the East now, we're gonna have to face these higher caliber opponents, right? And so from that standpoint, like the Dame Lillard piece addresses their biggest weakness from the 2021 championship team which was their half-court shot creation. You're right. Jrue Holiday and Chris Middleton, they had moments, right? Like Jrue hit big shots. Chris hit basically the game winner in Game 7 against the Brooklyn Nets, right? Like they hit big shots, but they weren't consistently reliable in those ways, right? And they were fortunately never up against an opponent that was so much better than them at half-court execution. So it worked out. So in this particular situation, Giannis's free throws have fallen off of a cliff. I can't remember the exact number, but it was insane. Giannis shot some putrid number outside of the restricted area this year. I want to say it was like 28%, and it was like atrociously bad. And so like he can't do that stuff. And in whatever little brief windows of it we saw in 2021, it actually regressed. He doesn't even have a left shoulder hook shot. Like he can't even rise up over Bam Adebayo from 7 feet and hit like a hook shot consistently. So like you needed somebody that could take over those late game situations and execute offensively. And that's what Dame's going to be able to do. And that completely relieves the pressure on Giannis. Now he can just be great at what he's always great at. He can devote more energy to, like, remember how fatigued he got in that Celtics series in 2022? Like, that's not going to happen anymore. Like, he's going to literally be a wrecking ball in all of the dirty work areas of the game. I think it makes perfect sense for them as a basketball fit.
Seeing Giannis in the playoffs and the defense is just simply not guarding him on the perimeter, and like the guy that's supposed to be guarding him standing under the basket, and Giannis is just looking at it. He's sizing it up. He's like, should I shoot it? He almost looks to the bench like, should I shoot it? And the coaches are like, no, please don't. And he's like, I'm going to fucking shoot it. And then he shoots it, and it's an air ball. Oof. Just a brutal thing to watch. And I imagine having Damian Lillard on the team means a lot fewer instances of that, which I would be very excited about if I was a Bucks fan. So you talked about the Bucks needing to, obviously they lose in 5 games to the Heat, but even if that didn't happen, you still need to get better. You still need to, make some moves to strengthen your team here, because there are some beasts in the East that are going to give them problems. One of them is the Boston Celtics that Jrue Holiday has now ended up on. This was the big trade that happened yesterday. Now I guess that's like the big argument back and forth is like who should be favored, the Bucks or the Celtics. It feels like it's a little bit of a 2-horse race. Yeah, I mean, like I guess we'll do the same thing with Jrue. Like what does this look like to you? Like what the new look Celtics with Jrue Holiday? I imagine you're going to say, as I feel, like this was a great move for them. But yeah, what do you anticipate? Did the Boston Celtics get demonstrably better in your eyes than they've been in the last few years?
Yeah, I think they did. So Jrue Holiday to me is the exact same archetype as Marcus Smart. He's like a capable offensive player that occasionally can go off script and be a little over aggressive, right? And has a little bit of a power game, like will play out of the post. So does Marcus. And then on the defensive end, they're like these elite top tier point of attack defenders that are capable of switching onto forwards, which makes them super versatile in a playoff scheme when you have to do variations of pick and roll coverages and switching, right? But Drew's a better version of Marcus, in my opinion, at every single one of those things. He's a better spotted player. He's a better pick and roll player. He's a better post player. He's just a better version of Marcus. You needed Marcus as the vehicle to get you the Kristaps Porzingis contract.
Yeah.
And the idea behind the Kristaps Porzingis contract is you want to have a little bit of the best of both of Horford and Robert Williams, which is Kristaps Porzingis is a much better rim protector in a traditional drop coverage than Al Horford is, but he can shoot like Al, right? And so the problem is they'd go with Robert Williams at the 5 and their offense would suffer, but they'd be better defensively, or they'd go with Horford at the 5 and their offense would be better, but their defense would suffer, right? Porzingis gives you kind of a better option there. Also, teams switch against the Celtics a lot because they love baiting Tatum and Brown into ISOs because those two can really struggle in those situations, right? So like giving yourself a post-up threat in Porzingis who can attack switches on the opposite end as a posting up a small. And he was particularly good with duck-ins and like creating angles for, I'm not talking like dump it down and 17 dribbles post up. Like he would get duck-ins and seals and quick catch finishes, right? So like that is a huge weapon to have in a playoff series. And then Jrue Holiday can post a little bit as well. So the way I look at it is you used Marcus Smart to get you Porzingis, and then you brought back a better version of Marcus Smart. Now, obviously losing Robert Williams hurts you to some extent. And now you're really thin on that front line. And if like Porzingis goes down or if Horford goes down, you could be in some trouble. They did sign Wenyen Gabriel, who I like, but unfortunately Woj lied about his height yesterday and said he's 7 feet tall. He's definitely not 7 feet tall.
No, he's not 7 feet tall.
No, he's not. So like I think it definitely limits their margin for error a little bit, but I think it raises their ceiling significantly.
Yeah, I mean, relying on Porzingis, who's had health problems in the past, obviously, and a 37-year-old Al Horford, who's been awesome, but is also, as a man in my mid to late 30s, it's sadly, my body does not feel better than you don't like suddenly feel better. Things start to fall apart, is what I'm saying, and Al Horford's a different breed of human than I am, but. I don't know. Yeah, that would be the question to me, is just sort of some of the depth issues. I do find it fascinating, Jason, how Celtics fans the Marcus Smart conversations in the last 24 hours are cracking me up because, as you said, Jrue Holiday is basically a better version of Marcus Smart. But all the people that hated the Celtics for years were trying to tell Celtics fans that Marcus Smart actually sucks. And when he won the Defensive Player of the Year, you're like, this guy just flops. He's nothing. He's terrible. This is stupid. This is annoying. And then now he's not on the Celtics anymore. Jrue Holiday's there. It feels like the Celtics haters were like, you guys are going to miss Marcus Smart. So let's pump the brakes. Like that's a big loss for the Celtics. And the Celtics fans are like, no, we're not. He was never anything to us. We never cared. I love NBA fandom. So like, yeah, what is the biggest downside, would you say, for the Celtics? The depth? Is it because losing letting Grant Williams walk, I feel like Grant Williams is not a superstar per se, but he did sort of embody the Celtics ethos a little bit. And I feel like some of these core guys that when you turn on Celtics playoff games that were getting a lot of run are not on the team anymore. Would that be it? Would it be the depth of this team that you worry about?
Yeah, Grant Williams is an interesting guy because like he didn't play much last year. We all remember him coming in and getting absolutely flambéed by Jimmy Butler in that one game, right? But the truth of the matter is he's a very matchup specific type of forward that you like to have on the roster. Specifically for a Bucks team or a Nuggets team, one of the best ways to guard Giannis is to have kind of a fire hydrant forward that can beat him to spots and force him to shoot shots over the top. Grant Williams famously actually defended Giannis pretty well and through the first 5-6 games of the conference semis 2 years ago, right? But then even with Jokic, like it's kind of known that the best way to guard him is to put a fire hydrant forward on him that just pressures him like crazy and then have a freak athlete on the back line that can kind of toe that line between helping at the rim on Jokic when he spins off of this guy and getting out to a shooter or a dunker, right? So like Grant Williams is a more significant loss than I think Celtics fans realize because you didn't need him last year.
Right.
But like, again, versatility is everything in the playoffs. It's like the Lakers, right? Like one series you're using Rui because you're not having him chase off of screens as much, but then you go into a Warriors series and suddenly Jared Vanderbilt becomes way more valuable because he can navigate off of screens, right? And then all of a sudden you go to the next round and Rui's valuable again. Like you want to have versatility in these positions. And, I don't think they're going to miss Malcolm Brogdon much because Derek White's just better than him, in my opinion, as a playoff player. I think he's just more dynamic on both ends of the floor. But specifically Grant Williams and Robert Williams, it's just front court depth. And like now you're in a situation where you could be in some serious trouble. Now, the one upside is Jrue is such a good switch defender that in theory they could float during stretches of the regular season by going small. But in terms of playoff flexibility, I think they are going to need another big at some point.
The one team in the East we haven't talked about yet, because it seems like all the conversations are who's going to win the East, the Bucks or the Celtics. Those are the two options. The team that played in the NBA Finals last year, the Miami Heat, the team that was supposed to, depending on who you're listening to, supposed to get Damian Lillard. I guess my first question, Jason, do you think that the Portland Trailblazers just completely hate the Miami Heat? Was this like the fact that the Blazers are involved in these two big moves, and in both of them they strengthened the two Eastern Conference rivals for the Heat? When David Lillard was like, "Please trade me to the Heat," and they said, "Not only are we not going to trade you to the Heat, watch this." Where are you if you're a Heat fan sitting here today, seeing those two teams get strengthened? Are you like, hopefully the Heat culture can save us in the end? I don't know. You think you're getting Damian Lillard and you look up and Jimmy Butler's wearing emo hair at media day and you're like, what world am I?
What is going on?
What just happened in the last few days?
I hate this damn game that we play every time there's a trade too, where it's like the agent comes out to like The Athletic or to Yahoo Sports and releases like the player side of the story.
Right.
And then 2 days later, it's like, here comes Adrian Wojnarowski with like the really like pensive, deeply thought out, piece about how the general managers are actually navigating this. And it's like, who the hell knows what actually happened? I do think that Miami Heat fans greatly overestimate the value of their assets. Like, yeah. I can tell you, like, Tyler Herro was the very worst like kind of like live ball dribble ISO player in the league last year. He can't beat people off the dribble the way he can in pick and roll. So like he needs very specific coverages to succeed. There were like 82 players who ran at least, I think, 100 ISOs last year, and he was dead last in points per possession. It was rough. And like GMs around the league are like, this dude already makes 30 million. He doesn't defend super well. On offense, he's kind of depends on the matchup, whether or not he can be successful. So he doesn't carry a lot of value. Nikola Jovic, good player, good young player, but I promise you he's not a blue chipper that GMs are going to move mountains for. And then they have draft picks for a franchise that is literally the best franchise in the NBA that it never sucks. So like what's the value of a late first round draft pick? Like they have won the most playoff games since LeBron came into the league in 2004 by a lot, and they've won the fourth most regular season games since 2004. So it's just not a good option there. And what's really annoying is when you look at the big picture, you have the best coach in the NBA, in my opinion, in Spoelstra, and you have a proven playoff duo in Jimmy and Bam that like legit give everybody problems. So like they just need firepower, but it's like they just can't get into these arms races because they don't have the assets to make the move. So like part of me wonders if you're better off like cutting your losses and taking a riskier option. You know what I mean? James Harden doesn't strike me as heat culture, but like at the end of the day, are you really going to run this back with the talent they have right now? Because they lost Strus, they lost Vincent, they got Josh Richardson, who I really like. Josh Richardson's a good player, but he's not any demonstrable amount better than Max Strus as a two guard that can shoot and attack off closeouts and stuff. So like they legitimately are worse than last year, and the window is closing. So like what's the aggressive move? What do they do? And they might have to accept the reality of what assets they have to offer and target something a little less enticing, like maybe a Jordan Clarkson, like just try to find somebody out there that can make it so that Jimmy Butler's not the only guy on the damn team who can create his own shot,
I mean, the downside to Heat culture is that you spend all this time, I guess the Heat don't, but like the conversations around the Heat are that they got these players that nobody else thinks anything they couldn't do anything. Duncan Robinson, you take a guy like Duncan Robinson, we plug him into our culture, and I know Duncan's fallen out of favor the last year or so, but we can take him and turn him into this great player, and we alone are good at like finding these diamonds in the rough. Now, the flip side to that is when it's time to use these assets to trade them, and your whole thing is like, all these assets we have, we're the only people that can figure out how to use them well. Then every other team is like, yeah, we don't have any fucking use for your, we don't have Heat culture in Portland, okay? We need good players. We need good players. And you don't have any, as it turns out.
To back you.
One guy who kind of like slipped under the radar in this trade that I find fascinating because I'm more of a college basketball guy. I know you're an Arizona guy yourself, so I want to talk to you about DeAndre Ayton a little bit. At this point, I'm not surprised that the Suns moved on from DeAndre Ayton. It did seem like a marriage that had kind of hitting the rocks there, but is he damaged goods? Would you say? Like, is he like where is the DeAndre Ayton perception around the league? Because this guy was obviously the number one pick in a draft that's very famous, and I felt like he's a really good player. I felt like he's always been a good enough player to just make you frustrated that he's not better, but he's still like a pretty good player in my eyes. But the discourse around DeAndre Ayton in Phoenix just seems like it got to a point where this was not a surprise they moved on from him. Where do you see his career going from here? Is this like the last we've seen of DeAndre Ayton playing meaningful basketball?
I don't think so. I mean, he's super, super talented. I think this is 100% a self-awareness issue. Like when we go back 2 years ago, before dominating was a thing, back then it was like he was willing to screen and roll and play defense and rebound, and he was really a deeply impactful player for an NBA Finals team. But somehow over the last 2 years, I don't know if it's his inner circle. I don't know if it's just his frustrations with Devin Booker and Chris Paul in general, or Monty Williams, but like he got to a point where he was like, I'm better than what they're using me for. Yeah. So I'm no longer willing to do these dirty work things. I want to be more of an offensive fulcrum. And so what I think is happening right now for him could actually be good for him, because if he goes to Portland and finds out once again that running an offense through DeAndre Ayton is probably not a good idea, then he might eventually over the years kind of embrace what his real role is. Think of it as like Dwight Howard's not a good comp because Dwight Howard in his prime was so much better than Ayton. So I want to be clear. I'm not trying to compare the two, but do you remember how like Howard like wanted his post touches, and he'd turn and shoot that stupid alligator arm like a little bank shot and a couple sweeping hooks, and you're like, you're like, Dwight, like, dude, if you just protect the rim and screen and roll, we're going to beat everybody. You know,
Right.
like Keto Turkoglu is just better at offense than you. I'm sorry, man. You know, like if when he got to the point where after going through Houston and going through those, you know, the 3 years where he was on 3 different teams, when he landed in LA, he was so devoid of like any sort of, you know, cachet to be able to walk in a room and be like, throw me the damn basketball, that he had no choice but to embrace this role. And he was a deeply impactful player for the Lakers that year. He was one of their 5 best players, in my opinion. So that's kind of the way I see the DeAndre Ayton career process going. I think he's going to have probably a 3-4 year stretch here in Portland where he puts up big numbers on a bad team, but every time he's in a big game or every time he's in some sort of high leverage moment, his offense is not reliable. And so eventually he just kind of embraces the reality of what he needs to be. And then he has like a late career self-awareness phase where he's better as a role player. That's kind of the way I see it.
Yeah, like some contender picks him up and he gives him 15 minutes a game or something and wins a ring, and then he's like, suck it, haters, I was good all along. And we're like, well, that's a little
exactly.
I mean, your role in that championship team isn't quite what we thought it was going, you know, like, well, you know what, enjoy the title, DeAndre, enjoy the title. So the Suns, his old team, the team that traded him, they are the most fascinating team to me going into this NBA season because you know, you get Bradley Beal and you have all this firepower and they have gotten better, but at the same time, I mean, if there is one team that I would point to that I would say, you know, the proverbial there's only one ball, it's this team where it does feel redundant. Now, guys who play on the wing and can score will never fall out of style in this league. So, like, you know, if you have 5 of those on the court, you're in good shape. But where do you land with that? Like, in your anticipation of what this Phoenix Suns team will be, do we anticipate there being a problem with these guys meshing, or do you think you know, we'll see more of what we saw in the playoffs, which is like Durant and Booker just went nuclear, and then maybe throw Bradley Beal in there, he goes nuclear too. Suddenly you got 3 dudes averaging like 35 points a game, and it's like, you know, how is anybody going to stop these guys? Like, what's your read on Phoenix entering the season?
It's similar to the Dame thing. Like, let's not galaxy brain this. Putting those 3 guys together, they're going to be really damn hard to guard, and they're going to score a shit ton of points. Like, that's just going to happen.
Yeah.
The thing that's interesting about it though is you, like, I actually had a mailbag question that I'm hitting in today's show that someone asked that was really interesting. He goes, you know, with the parity at the top of the league, what's going to separate teams now? Like, is it going to be luck? And I look at that and I go, actually, I think that's where things like continuity and like natural basketball fit and commitment to the dirty work could end up being what separates these teams. Because like the Suns have a ton of firepower, but so does Boston and so does Milwaukee. And then Denver and LA kind of have more of a physically imposing profile, but they have a big problem that they can pose teams. So what is going to separate teams? And you called it redundancy. I call it like diminishing returns, whatever you want to call it. But this concept of like, just here, I'll give you an example. If I had this exact same basketball team, but I could replace Bradley Beal with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope.
Right.
Who's a guy who thrives playing off the ball, who is an excellent closeout attacker, who sprints in transition like crazy for corner threes, and he's one of the best one-leg leaping guards in the league, so he can finish at the rim really well in transition, and just in general is a championship-level dirty work role player. Do I get more out of him in this situation? Whereas, like, obviously, if I swapped KCP and Bradley Beal with the Wizards get way worse. You know what I mean? Like, that's the concept of diminishing returns here. And that's the thing is, like, what player on this team is a good starter-level player whose reputation is that they defend and rebound? Like, who? Who? Yeah. Like, and you just got demonstrably worse, in my opinion, at center. The hate Ayton all you want. Like, Nurkic is not an upgrade there. Now, all the intel says that the Suns think he's going to be better at navigating short rolls, meaning like every time they put 2 on the ball, they're thinking Nurkic is just going to be better at making those reads, running the 4-on-3. But my thing is, like, he's a guy who's consistently not healthy and is a considerably worse defensive player. And so, like, I wouldn't be shocked if Jrue Eubanks ends up playing actually most of the minutes at center when things actually matter. So, like, that's my thing is, like, one of those guys, maybe it's Beal. Maybe Beal says, I'm going to be like KCP and I'm going to guard like crazy on the perimeter and I'm going to do all these little things. But one of those guys has to, like, at least one has to dive into the dirty work. KD has to have his best defensive season as a pro. Like all these guys have to buy in because you just can't win without that stuff anymore. Not when all the other top teams are stacked with talent too.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I think that was the difference for Denver this year, where I think the obvious answer as to why the Denver Nuggets won a championship this year and they haven't in the past couple or whatever is that Jamal Murray was actually healthy for the playoff run. But I think the real answer, if you're really paying attention and looking at the way they're handling the roster, is bringing in guys like KCP and Bruce Brown and Aaron Gordon, where they didn't become a defensive-minded team, but what you said, like they started leaning on guys that are more willing to do the dirty work. And I do find that fascinating. We always fall into the same trap of just completely neglecting that stuff as basketball fans. Like people just want to talk about the star power at the top. And yeah, I think that's ultimately why Denver won the championship. I don't think they. Yeah, I mean, I think yes, obviously getting Jamal Murray healthy was the biggest reason, but I think if you have a healthy Jamal Murray and you don't have a KCP and you don't have a Bruce Brown, you don't have these guys that want to do the dirty work, they're not winning the NBA championship last year, and it's such a weird thing because. Yeah, I don't know if fans like fully appreciate that, and yeah, I'll be curious to see if the Suns, if that'll end up biting them. Speaking of the Nuggets, why the Nuggets aren't? The Nuggets are good. The Nuggets, like why? Really yeah, good. They're still really good, right? Like they should. I mean, I since the Bucks and Celtics have gotten better, it feels like those are the two teams that Vegas loves and everybody loves. Like, should the Denver Nuggets still be favored to win the championship, Jason?
So here's the thing, I love the way you broke down like the synergy piece because it really is that simple. Like the Nuggets were a talented team. I don't want to sit here and act like it was Jokic and a bunch of scrubs because it's not what it was. They were a talented team, but I don't think they were the most talented team in the league last year. They were the best basketball team, but they weren't the most talented basketball team last year. So all of that like synergy and like all the the total being more than the sum of its parts, all that junk definitely was working for Denver. I do think the Bruce Brown piece is significant because like he legitimately dominated his matchup in every series.
Yeah.
And it's a huge thing. Like, again, like the Lakers got swept. And I'm not saying that without Bruce Brown, the Lakers would have won the series. I don't think that's the case. They have bigger issues that they have to solve. But like Bruce Brown whooped D'Angelo Russell's ass. Like, embarrassed him in front of the entire world, so much so that you're like, wow, how did he get 18 million a year after this? Like, you know what I mean? Like how is it that he gets 18 and Bruce Brown gets 22 and a half? Like they're in completely different stratospheres as players, right? And I like Christian Braun. He's going to help. They've got some other young guys that they think can step in and play roles, but at the end of the day, like I do think that specific piece makes them a little bit worse. But at the end of the day, as long as that core five guys is healthy, they're going to be equally as capable of beating any one of these teams. I think they were rightfully the favorite before all of these trades. And I think after the trades, it makes sense that I haven't seen if the Celtics odds have changed, but I know the Bucks passed them in the championship odds. But like they probably are right behind those two just because those two teams got demonstrably better.
Right.
And the Nuggets got a little bit worse, and I do think that factors in.
What about the Sixers? What the hell's going on? I mean, it's the moment's come and gone, right? Like we can. I as a casual. I mean, I'm not a casual NBA fan. I'm somewhere in between a casual and your level of NBA fandom. I don't have to pay attention to the Sixers, right, Jay? Like I can pay attention to Joel Embiid, but like as a franchise.
Did you see Embiid tweet yesterday?
No. What did he say?
He tweeted out like this summer's been fun.
Oh,
after the Jrue holiday trade.
Yeah.
And he showed up in the presser today and basically was like, yeah, not great, but I think honestly the worst thing that happened, I think, was that Daryl Morey got to win the Ben Simmons trade, basically. So like he turned one of the most distressed assets in the league into James Harden, who at the time was considered like a massive win for the Sixers. Like Sixers fans were like, holy crap, we won this deal, right? But here's the thing, like James Harden had to nuke his value in Brooklyn to get to the point where that trade was feasible. And since then, all he's done is further nuke his value. Like he had these two incredible games in the Celtics series, right? Like 40 plus points, game winners, like significant, like championship level performances. He was so ass in every other game in that entire playoff run. Like he shot below 30% in 6 of the 11 playoff games. It's crazy. Like just go to Basketball Reference and look at the box scores from his playoff run. Like it's unfathomably bad. And so then he follows that up with nuking the front office and the media and no showing camp. I don't know if you saw that. He no showed camp
Yes,
today. So like literally he had, so Daryl Morey, I think Daryl Morey literally looks at this and goes, I'm going to play the slow game and some magic trade's going to materialize. And here's the thing, maybe he does and he can rub it in all of our faces again. But like, I have a hard time believing James Harden is actually worth much at this point at all. And I'd also argue keeping him on the team is worse because when you get to the postseason, he gives you nothing. So like if there was one season he would, like last year, he was in better shape than he had been in recent years. He started taking mid-range jump shots again. He finally wasn't the best player on the team, so he could be in a lesser role and not have as much pressure. And he still fell apart. So like, at what point do you realize like I'd be better off with a guard who likes to play defense? You know, like I'd be better off with a point of attack defender. Like, at what point do you think like a role player might actually make the team better? And if you're not careful here, at what point does Joel Embiid just demand a trade?
I know.
And then all hell breaks loose, you know? Because if I was him, I'd be thinking about it.
That seems like where it's headed. So you authorize my listeners to just not care about, like, we don't have to, if you're paying attention to the Sixers, because you're like, yeah, the Sixers they haven't been to the finals, but they've been in the mix every playoffs I've watched for X number of years. I better pay attention to the Sixers this year because what if this is the year they break through? If you don't want to do it, I'll do it. I authorize everyone to just not pay attention to the Sixers this year. They are not worth your time. It is.
Well, and Embiid was sneaky bad. Embiid was sneaky bad in the playoffs last year. And so when you've got probably of the top tier superstars the worst playoff performer in Embiid of the top tier guys, and your supporting cast got demonstrably worse.
Yeah.
I don't see any universe where that doesn't become. I mean, I like Tyrese Maxey a lot, but he ain't saving that shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up LeBron at some point. And the Los Angeles Lakers. So I guess like my big LeBron question is, how do we see the exit strategy going? What does his retirement look like? Like, what do you see the next few years for because I think the plan was always Bronny gets to the NBA and then they team up and then maybe he does a year or two with them and then he rides off into the sunset. Bronny has the heart condition at USC, which I think he's going to eventually start playing again, but we're not really sure. He was kind of on the fence as to whether Bronny was like a legitimate NBA prospect anyway. Like what do you envision with LeBron James the next few years? What do they look like? Will he compete for an NBA championship again, either this year or in the immediate future? Do you see this man playing until he's 55 and just like making every single record untouchable in the league? Like at what point do we? I know LeBron retirement conversation have kind of started the last couple, but like at some point it's going to come. Like what is your read on all of that?
It's interesting because LeBron actually did say that his son had a surgery today didn't have the surgery today, but he talked about it today at Media Day. His son had a surgery and he's on track to return to the court. So that's that part of the story.
That's great.
I think the far more likely scenario is that Bronny ends up staying multiple years in college. And why wouldn't he? Because he's not a top tier lottery pick and the dude's just going to make a shit ton of money on NIL while he's there anyway. And like what real advantage is there for him to go into the league and play in some end of the bench role, you know what I mean? Now, who knows? Maybe he ends up, coming over to the Lakers as an undrafted free agent. But I have a hard time believing LeBron's going to want to leave this particular basketball situation, especially when you factor in that it involves the Lakers. So I think more than likely the idea of the two of them playing together is an extreme long shot at this point, but obviously it is on the table. I just think it's more likely that LeBron retires before Bronny even leaves USC.
Yeah.
As far as this Lakers team goes, it's interesting because I'm in this weird position where I genuinely believe they had a fantastic offseason, but didn't address any of their specific issues that beat them in the Nuggets series. So I really like Gabe Vincent because you needed an off-ball guard. When you have D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reeves and LeBron James, you don't need another Dennis Schroeder that's going to run a bunch of pick and roll. You need a guy who's willing to play off the ball as a guard, and Gabe Vincent is a very good off-ball guard. I really like Taurean Prince because both of their forwards are a little one-dimensional. Vanderbilt defends like a 3, but on offense, he's like a 4. Like, you're not going to guard him, right? Rui Hachimura is like a 4, but on defense, he's a little big and a little upright, and he can't really navigate on the perimeter super well, so he can't navigate screens, so that's why he couldn't play much in the Warriors series. Taurean Prince is like the actual 3, the guy that defends like a 3 and can play offense like a 3. So I really like that pickup. The two centers they got, legitimately like them both. Christian Wood on a veteran minimum, that's a great deal. Jackson Hayes on a veteran minimum, that's a great deal. But the three things that got you beat in the Nuggets series is Bruce Brown is way more athletic than all your guards and kicked their ass for 4 games. And you didn't get any more athletic in the backcourt, right? Mm-hmm. 2, your over-the-top shot making sucks. LeBron James and Anthony Davis can't make jump shots anymore. Who did they get that's like a knockdown? I like Austin Reeves a lot, but he's not gonna make a ton of tough contested pull-up jump shots in a playoff series. He's gonna make some shots in pick and roll. He's gonna make some big plays. And then at the center position, remember last year LeBron had to play center with the bench groups, and those groups got demolished. I like Jackson Hayes and Christian Wood, but are they guys who can play playoff minutes at center? I don't know. So like, it's weird because they genuinely did get better and deeper, and they're going to be a very good regular season team. But if they ran into Denver again, Denver deserves to be a heavy favorite because all of those same weaknesses still apply. And I'm not sure how they address those without flipping D'Angelo Russell at the deadline in some sort of super aggressive move, which I'm not sure if they're going to do.
Well, there is good news coming out of Los Angeles. That Anthony Davis said he's planning on playing all 82 games this year. So, so there is that. That's exciting. We should be excited about that. That's definitely going to happen. He will definitely. He wants to, so he will. I'm sure. No, I'm sure nothing will.
Yeah, it's really just a decision.
Austin Reeves. Listen, I like the guy. I watching him in the World Cup was fun. The butt's coming. I'm worried. I'm worried that the expectations are out of control. I'm worried that people are going to expect him to be Dwayne Wade to LeBron. Like, this is the Heatles, and Anthony Davis is Chris Bosh, and Austin Reeves is Dwayne. You know what I mean? Like the way, like every time this man takes a court, it's like his legend just continues to grow. And at some point, people are going to have in their minds of like the kind of player Austin Reeves is. They're going to watch the game and they're like, wait a second, this guy's not. That's not even close to as good as I thought he was. I don't know. That's just something I'm monitoring because the Austin Reeves hype is out. It's crazy, but I'm just like sort of worried that it's a runaway train at this point.
Well, I think the hype is all relative. Like the hype is relative to him being an unathletic white dude in the backcourt. Like that's really what it's relative to, right? So I think a lot of times I feel like I'm screaming from the mountaintops like this guy's good, not like he's great. I don't think he's going to be an all-star most likely at any point in his future, but like the dude had 20 points in the playoffs 8 times last year. He's legitimately like a really, really good basketball player. The way I'd frame it is like, think of him more as like a Manu Ginobili type. I think he's going to be a legendary role player on a lot of really good teams for a very long time. People associate him with foul grifting. The dude makes he gets more and ones than a lot of the players in the league. Like, he's not trying to grift. He's trying to make shots. He's just good at getting defenders out of position. He's also a little bit of a grifter, but let's just it's more complicated than that, right? He's a dead-eye three-point shooter. He's a very good pick and roll ball handler. He's one of the best players in the league at attacking closeouts. And for a below average NBA athlete, he's very committed on the defensive end and does his job. And and even that one game where he got his ass kicked by I think it was the Lithuanians, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. He was a great post defender in all of the other USA games. And also that's Steve Kerr's scheme. He likes to switch and leave you on an island. So that's just kind of the way it goes. But again, I want to be clear. Austin's not an all-star, but he's a very, very good player who plays a role at a championship level. And I think he's going to be a deeply impactful playoff player on a really good team for the rest of his life. And I think that is just a big gap from what people think of him, which is an undrafted, unathletic white dude in the backcourt. I think that's where the overreaction comes from.
For the entirety of his career to this point, he has outpaced expectations, and when you do that, the expectations shift. And my fear is that we're like a few years away from everyone being like, damn, Austin Reeves has never once been the best player on on a team that's gone deep into the playoffs. Is he really? I don't know. It's just crazy because it's a good problem to have. He plays well, seemingly every time he takes the court. But there were times during that World Cup where it felt like he was, I wouldn't say carrying the team, but he was balling out. He's awesome. Speaking of which, how much do you care about the World Cup, USA basketball in general? How much do you care about the idea that we sent a roster full of NBA players to a world championship and they didn't even get a medal?
So again, I think this actually goes to the bigger conversation we were having earlier about synergy and grouping players together that play roles. to me, the Germany team with Dennis Schroeder and Daniel Tice and Franz Wagner, like they're not exceptionally talented, but they complement each other extremely well. And I think the reality is like our best is obviously going to go over there and kick everyone's ass. I think that's just, I think next year if they send Anthony Davis, LeBron, KD, Steph,
KD said today,
Anthony Edwards, whoever it is.
KD said today he's going. He said during his meeting, he's like,
there you go.
Yeah, I'm playing in the Olympics. Yeah.
And like if LeBron's not injured, I would imagine he'll play as well. And like they're mainly just because that specific group of guys is like automatic basketball synergy, especially with LeBron being willing to be the ball screener and the guy who rebounds and does all the dirty work. Like it's going to work. And like, I think they'll be fine, but like, I think they need to be more careful with these between years of not picking the best players who are willing to go, but guys who are willing to play roles. Like the Brandon Ingram example is the best example. Like, is Brandon Ingram a better basketball player than Austin Reeves? Yeah, obviously. But Austin Reeves is better on Team USA than Brandon Ingram. Why is that? Because Austin Reeves is a player who is a professional at playing alongside other good basketball players. Mm-hmm. Whereas Brandon Ingram is like a heliocentric shot creator. And when you take the ball out of his hands, he becomes less impactful, and he hasn't played a lick of defense since he left the Lakers. So like that's the issue, right? So I'd like to see them in general just construct the team with that in mind more, which is weird because don't you remember the Redeem team? It was like, oh, we're going to bring back Michael Redd.
Yeah, Michael Redd.
Wasn't Tayshaun Prince on that team too? Like, I can't remember exactly who was on that team, but I think they brought like a bunch of guys who were more role player archetypes. And we're like, we're going to get guys that are actually willing to do a job. And that's where I could see them having a lot more success. And a great example is like going with Tyson Chandler in 2012.
Right.
Instead of a star center, you go with Tyson Chandler because this is a dude who just won a championship protecting the rim. This is what he does best. Let's bring him out there. I think that even our third string teams can beat the world if they're more properly constructed. And then also Steve Kerr also needs to be a little bit more flexible with the scheme. You can't ask everybody to play like the Warriors, man. Like it's not like you can't just. I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's my fear is that they just continue to construct the roster by just like Googling who are the best American basketball players or something, or just like looking at like the NBA All-Star team.
Going down the points per game.
Go to Sports Reference, sort by points per game, click on every player. Is he American? Oh, he is? All right, let's throw him on the team. Which is, sexy. It's a great way to do a video game team. If you're playing a video game, 2K, that'd be sick, but it doesn't always work on the world stage. Last basketball question I have for you. The midseason tournament, why? Sell a casual basketball fan on they're actually doing this, huh? Like this is actually a thing. I thought this was just like Adam Silver kicking the tires and just taking a temperature of the room on how people would feel about this, but they're going through with it. How jacked are you for this, Jason? This is gonna. I'm sure.
I'll be honest. I completely don't understand it. I still don't get how it works either. Like, okay, all of the games count as regular season games except for the championship game. There's some sort of cash reward, but it's non-disclosed. There's no other type of reward. To me, they're just regular season games branded differently.
Right.
And like, I genuinely, and I want to be clear because like, now I wasn't one of the guys who disliked the play-in tournament, but like, I think there were a lot of people who did and then saw it in practice and were like, oh, this is actually pretty cool. Like it actually does keep teams engaged more often in the regular season because more of them think they have a chance. And then the play-in games themselves are highly entertaining. This is great. But I think we need to give this a chance. Yeah. I'm just having a really hard time seeing
that's kind of where I'm at with. I'm like, nobody asked for this, but I'll try it. I'll watch it. There's a world where I'm like, damn, that was really cool, but I just can't really, as of right now, I can't really picture why I would think that about this thing. Very, very confusing, but whatever. All right, last thing for you. You went to the Dead and Company final concert in San Francisco. You're a Deadhead. How was it? Just how was it? I guess that's my question. Just how was it? I tried to watch it, and my stream wasn't great, but yeah. How many shows did you go to this summer?
I only went to 2 this summer. I actually had tickets to 4. My wife and I were going to go to see all 3 in San Francisco, But then it ended up turning into this thing where all of a sudden like 6 of my friends were coming too, and
Oh,
we were
wow.
like, let's go to wine country. And I'm like, okay, like I'm not going to drag my wife away from her friends to 3 Dead and Company shows, right? So we ended up just going to the Sunday show, the final show where they did the drone show.
Yeah.
And man, it was incredible. I had seats in the left field bleachers, which was really cool because we got to sit down the whole time. And every time I look down at the pit, I just imagine it being a complete. Have you ever gone to the pit?
I have. Yeah.
Is it as much of a shit show as it looks?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, there's pockets. It depends on what pocket you're in, you know. Like, but yeah, it can get a little grimy down there for sure. For sure.
So we were in the left field bleachers, and it was really nice because we were like looking out over the bay, and so that was really, really cool. They played a bunch of my favorite songs. The Althea's always been my favorite. The one that was a huge bummer is I thought they were going to play Sugar Rue that night, and then they didn't. But they ended up playing it at the Gorge, I think, like 4 shows prior. Dude, I had so much fun with this tour though, and I had that app, the nugs.net app.
So did I
got to like every day after the show, I got to listen. And honestly, man, I'm gonna miss John playing with those guys.
That's what I was gonna ask you. Like, what's next? Because I feel like Deadheads need some version of like the A-Team band, like whatever. There's a million Grateful Dead cover bands, and if you love the Dead's music, you can go listen to people. Like, there's a dive bar probably within 5 miles of all of us that someone's playing Grateful Dead music. But I feel like the community needs one band that they point to and like, this is the one. This is the one where we're all going, and like, you know, they're doing the tour and all this sort of thing. And I don't know where they go from here. I don't know what's next, and it makes me really sad. I mean, like, I saw someone pitch the idea of John and, like, you know, Jeff and Jay Lane on the drum. Like, let Mickey and Bob ride off into the sunset. Bill kind of already is. Let those guys ride off into the sunset. Let the guys that were in Dead and Company for this tour go continue to play, and then call it Uncle John's band. And I like that idea because John Mayer would be the the lead of that. But I think there needs to be one band, and I don't know what to do next summer. I don't know what we do, Jason. What do we do?
The Uncle John's band idea is a dope idea. Honestly, like, what's cool is I started watching Dead and Co. or listening to Dead and Co. because of John, but I ended up falling in love with all the other guys. Like, I think Jeff Chimenti is insanely good.
He's so good.
And he literally stole the show at the Oracle Park show with Franklin's Tower. He was incredible, and like literally lit the stadium on fire. It was crazy. And I want to hear all these guys keep playing. Now, John on his Instagram page said, like, Dead and Company is still a band. We just don't know what is next. And so I have a hard time believing he's going to put down the music forever. Yeah. Here's my one concern though. John's a weirdo. And he goes through phases. He's like, I'm going to move to Montana and wear rugs for 2 years. Like he's going to do, he's a weird guy. So like, and now he's doing these solo tours, which are all like acoustic heavy. Whereas he just finished the, what was his last album called? I'm blanking on it.
I know what you're talking about. The Last Train Home one. What was that called?
Why can't I think of what it's called?
Hang
it's
on.
killing me.
I gotta look it up.
But like, that album was his kind of like modern blues album. Sob Rock, that's right. Yeah. It was kind of like his modern blues album that kind of follows some of the bluesier stuff that he was doing with Dead and Co. So like, I'm hoping he doesn't go into a phase and basically put down his electric guitar for 2 years. Like, that would really piss me off. So I'm especially since like this Dead and Company thing kind of has me riding high on that type of music. But what I've been doing, man, is I've been going back and listening to some of the old Dead stuff.
So good.
And like, honestly, like, I really appreciate how hard John worked to kind of have the a little bit of that Jerry Garcia style mixed in with his style. Yeah. Because it almost sounds like it's like his interpretation of his kind of the music, and like, going back and listening to the old stuff has caused me to appreciate that more.
Yeah, that's what makes me so sad that they're done, is because I felt like this tour, they were just fine. Like, they were at their peak, and it like all started just coming together so perfectly. And anyone who says they want to see bands go out on top, you say that because you say that when you go see like a band that's like way past their prime and they're just kind of going through the motions and all that shit. But then when you see a band that is literally at their peak and they're like, all right, we're done now, that's very frustrating, because you're like, we could have had so much. You guys are gelling at an unbelievable level. No, man, I the last show I went to was in Boulder, and Mickey.
You saw a drone show too, didn't you?
Yeah, I think there was. I don't know. I'll tell you this, Jason. I saw a drone show. I don't know if there actually was one, if you know what I'm saying. I looked up in the sky and I was like, there's some shit flying around up there. I don't know if it's real, but it's up there.
Do you get into the weird stuff? Because like the last couple years in particular, it's funny because like my uncle used to tell this to me because my uncle was like my uncle, my dad's twin brother, is like a crazy deadhead that like before the internet became a thing, he was like a broker for recorded shows. And like you'd call him to be like, I need the CD from 1977 at Cornell, like that kind of thing. And so like he used to tell me, he'd be like, Jason, one day you're going to be listening to Dark Star and you're going to be like, I get it now.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like it happened to be the last couple of years because I found myself like especially at the Oracle Park show, I'm like, I'm liking this too much for all of the songs. And when I started, it was only some of the songs. This is getting a little weird.
Yeah, I'm fully on the bus, man. I got a lot of thoughts on what I picked up the Dead like not too long, like later in life, but I've gotten to the point where you can play songs and I can kind of get close to like what year it was and like what. Yeah, I don't know. Not that I'm trying to flex my knowledge or whatever, but it's just like I've had those moments too where I'm like, I might be in too deep, or am I? I don't know. I don't know if this is.
If we start talking about the European tour, then I think that's where we start to have some issues. Yeah, it's like we might as well cut it off.
You're the man, dude. Thanks for doing this. Jason Timpf hosts Hoops Tonight with the Volume. Go subscribe if you haven't already. Basketball season around the corner. He is the best basketball show that I listen to. I love your stuff so much. That's why we love having you on here, Jason. Thanks so much. We'll do it when the season gets rolling, and we'll bring you back. But appreciate you making time, man.
Hell yeah, brother. Looking forward to next time.
All right. Thank you to Jason Timpf. Always a pleasure talking to him. He's so good at breaking it down. And do you understand what he's talking about, TJ, in general?
Not usually.
Okay. All right. That's what I was trying to
not an NBA guy, but he does. He knows ball. Obviously.
He knows ball, yeah. And I think he does he just knows the game. He's a hooper, man, too. I said this last time he came on the show, but go to Jason's Twitter account. He posts highlights of himself playing all the time, which some people, if you're an insecure little bitch, you might say like, damn, why does he do that? Is he bragging? And I disagree. I think it's awesome. I think everybody should do that. I think like Bosco sent me a clip of him hooping the other day, and he's like, if only they knew or something. And I was like, Bosco, let him know.
Yeah.
Let him know. Like, put that out there.
Keeping your own.
Yeah, dude, you got to put that out there, especially if you're in basketball media, because there's so many dorks that can't hoop. That you got to every so often let them know that you can play. And Jason does a great job of that. And I don't know, he's awesome. He's the best. Always love having him on the show. And it was fun talking a little Dead. I saw that he went to the final concert, and I was so jealous of him. And I made a mental note. Next time he comes on the show, I want to talk to him about Grateful Dead. And then I started, and then I was like, I think we could do this for 3 more hours. I think we got to get out. Some shout outs before we go. First, I want to shout out, speaking of LeBron James, he has another son. His one son did not go to Ohio State. Again, I'm not saying this is why. I'm just saying 2 facts. Draw your own conclusions. He had Ohio State on his final list. He did not choose Ohio State. And then not long after, he had a heart condition that had to make him stop playing basketball. These are facts. I didn't say one led to the other. I'm just stating facts. But LeBron does have another son. His other son is named Bryce James. And this weekend, according to Joe Tipton, who is the recruiting guru of the internet, of college basketball, according to him, Bryce James will be on campus at The Ohio State University this weekend for the Maryland football game. And that is noteworthy, obviously, because it's LeBron's other son taking a visit. But also, TJ, this was the one weekend that I had circled as me making my trip back to Columbus. My annual trip I take back to Columbus for one football game a year is this weekend. I will also be in Columbus. I will be at the practice he will be at.
Wow.
Just like I was there for Bronny James' visit.
So they are rolling out the red carpet is what you're saying for Mr. James.
I think the James family loves me. I think they only take visits when they know I'm coming back to campus.
Right.
But also, if I was on campus last time and Bronny didn't pick Ohio State, was it my fault? Shit. Maybe I shouldn't go.
Probably. I would say probably.
Maybe I shouldn't go. I did speak to the team. Did I tell that story on this show? I told the story on the other show I did before I. Did I tell it on this show?
You gave a speech in front of Bronny James? Is that what you're about to say?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I didn't work here yet. That was on another show. Yeah, when Bronny made his official visit to Ohio State, obviously the security for practice was pretty tight because LeBron and Gloria were there. No, Gloria's the mom. Who's Savannah, right? Savannah's the wife. LeBron and Savannah were and Bronny were on the visit, and they let like nobody in the gym except me. The reason they let me in is because Holt had set up, like in the weeks prior, even before they knew Bronny was coming, he had asked me to, he was like, Titus, you coming to the Notre Dame Ohio State football game? I was like, yeah. And he's like, will you do you mind speaking to the team after practice? And I was like, what? And I said, Coach, when I was on the team, I wasn't even allowed to talk. And now you want me to talk to the guys? He's like, yeah. He's like, I don't know. I was like, what do you want me to say? And he's like, I don't know. Just talk about some shit. I don't know. Just talk. He's like, you won a lot of games here. I was like, do you know who I am? Like, yeah. Anyway, so he had set this thing up for me to speak to the team. And then Bronny said, I'm taking my official visit on that weekend. And so on the lead up, I was like, holy shit, I'm going to be giving a speech in front of LeBron and Bronny. And my speech might sway this kid. Like in my head, I'm like, if I give a hell of a speech, he's going to commit to Ohio State on the spot. But then in the end, Bronny and LeBron and Savannah left practice like 10 minutes after it started. And I never.
Honestly, probably for the best.
And they went to the football game, and they didn't hear my speech anyway. But yeah, so I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be in the gym when Bryce James is there. So I don't know if LeBron will be there too.
Give a speech.
I should just go dap him up, like what's up, man? Good to see you.
Yeah.
There's a famous picture. Well, not that famous, but in my circles it is. When LeBron was on the Cavs, they played a preseason game at the Schottenstein Center, our arena, and so we were sponsored by LeBron. LeBron's got like his own brand with Nike. We were the first. Ohio State was the first LeBron school in the way that a lot of these schools are Jordan schools. We were a LeBron school. So LeBron plays a preseason game in Columbus, and there's some sort of like ceremony before the game where we are presenting him with a jersey that's I don't know, it's just like the LeBron Ohio State jersey. We're presenting it to him, and as this is going on, I weasel my way behind LeBron and behind Coach Mata, and I am in the picture just like making a cheese dick grin, standing over both of their shoulders. It is very funny, but yeah, maybe he'll remember that. Maybe I'll show him the picture. Be like, good to see you again, bro. What else? Shout out John Fanta. You sent me this.
Yeah.
Calling bowling matches. Yeah. I had no idea he had this in his arsenal, but holy hell, he's good at this. John Fanta is so good at this, isn't he?
It doesn't really surprise me that much for some reason.
Dude, his like the one clip of him, he's like, I forget the guy's name, but he's like, and here's TJ Hitchings, father of 3, 1 beautiful baby girl and 2 big old strong boys, and then the strikeout. And I was like, damn, dude, the cadence was perfect there. Yeah. Like the lead up to it, you're giving me a backstory of his life. Like he's doing it for them. He's doing it for them. And it's a strike. That's amazing. I didn't know John Fanta had that up his sleeve, dude. That was incredible. So shout out to him for that. What else? Shout out to Ole Miss football fans storming the field when they beat LSU. I love that. I love that the SEC is like fines their fans when they do this, and that all of the stuck-up nerds that run the schools in the SEC don't want this to happen. They badly are trying to prevent storm fielding and or field storming, I guess it'd be, and court storming and all the other stuff. But I love that the fans do it anyway. Those are the best case scenarios, is when the adults are like, you better not. I swear to God, you better not. And then they're like, watch this. Stop me, bitch. And then the one security guard.
Yeah, the video of the one security guard just like playing offensive line, basically trying to block one of the 25,000 people that were storming the field. I don't know what the goal was there.
Yeah, that was awesome. So, but I am very pro storming the court, storming the field. When Colorado did it, when they beat Colorado State, I was like, yes, please do that. But the best ones are in the SEC, because the SEC says we will fine you. So all the schools like turn up the security. They try very hard to make it not happen. And when you see an SEC court storm or field storm, it's extra special to me. So shout out to Ole Miss fans for doing that. Finally, the Ryder Cup was an embarrassment. Fire everybody. Fire everybody. Fire them all. I'm disgusted. I watched a couple holes of this thing. I don't know what happened, but I just think we fire everybody. And but also at the same time, if we actually sent our best players, we would we kind of sent our B team, if we're being honest, right? Like if we would have sent our A team, we would have smoked those Euros. Yeah, what a stupid thing that was. What a stupid tournament the Ryder Cup turned out to be. Shout out Max Homa though, dude. He was balling.
Yeah,
Max Homa hit that chip in and turned around and was just like,
that's what we need.
Fuck you! Just pointed a finger in the face of the fan. Dude, that was awesome.
If all golf was as hype as that golf is, like, I don't really understand the team format still, and the score bugs only got more and more confusing as the events went on. It seemed at one point it said like 1 up, 2 tie, 3 tie, 4 you're up, 1 down. I was like, what's the score? But if all regular golf was as hype as that golf was, I think golf would be like the most popular sport in America.
Every time I watch the Ryder Cup, I'm shocked to see how much these people, these guys, the players, care about it. Because to me, it's like, it's an interesting idea, and I'll watch it if I can, but you're also teeing off at 3:30 in the morning and stuff. But then you got like, who was the captain of the Europeans? Luke Donald? Was that who it was? Was it Luke Donald?
Sounds like a European.
Yeah, it was Luke Donald. Luke Donald was the captain of the Europeans. You got Zach Johnson, who's the captain of the Americans. Both these dudes are like bawling their eyes out after the event. Like Luke Donald's like, this is the highlight of my career. Everything I've won doesn't matter compared to this. This is the most important thing. And then Zach Johnson's crying. He's like, I fucked up. I ruined everything. I'm going to go kill myself because I was the captain of a United States team that got smoked by the Europeans. And I'm watching it like, I like that people care and I like the emotion. This is why we watch sports, but also like kind of came out of nowhere. I'm like, I forget that this is the most important thing in the world to these people.
How often do they do the Ryder Cup?
Every 2 years. So 2 years from now, it's in Bethpage, New York. It'll be back on American soil.
That's gonna be, or no, I guess, but a hell of a run for sports in America. Because don't we have that, and then the Olympics the year after, and then the World Cup like 2 years after that.
Yeah. Hell yeah, we're back, dude. How about that? USA. Yeah, that is.
I can't wait for the Olympics to be in America. That's going to be so sick.
For being completely honest, we should host everything.
Yeah.
We should host everything. Come on.
Instead of, like, crippling the economy of other small cities around the world that want to do it, like, and then they have to build 15 stadiums in 3 years, and it costs $10 billion. We already have all the stadiums.
Yeah.
The World Cup's being played at like 20 different venues across America.
Yeah, LA in 28 is like they're not building it. The only thing they're doing is like just insane amounts of construction on the airport.
That's just LA.
But that's just LA, dude. But yeah, I remember like 2 years ago they started doing some construction on LAX. People were like, yeah, it's anticipation for the Olympics. And they're expecting a lot of people to come to LA. And I was like, bitch, look around. Like, we
got the people already.
The people are already here. Wait, okay, so traffic's going to be bad? Is that what you're saying? All right, got it. All right, that's all I got. You got anything else?
No, just thanks to anybody from this audience that tuned into the stream on Friday night. It was a good time.
That's right. We got to shout you out for that, dude. That was incredible. I still can't believe you did that.
I still can't believe you showed up in my apartment.
How do you feel about that, honestly?
What, you showing up?
Yeah, was that a misfire?
I thought it was a joke, and then the front desk called and said, do you know a Titus? He's here for you. And I said, oh, yeah, send him up. Like, I thought it was funny. I thought it was awesome.
I was tanked at the bar, man, and I was like, I should send something, but I was like, I need to help TJ out somehow. What should I do? And I was like, the only thing I can think is like, I should just go over there and clap it up. I should just get in his living room and just clap him up and cheer him on. But then it was all like a whirlwind, and I already told you this, but like once I got to your living room and I'm watching you play, I was like, damn, I don't really know what's going on here. And I'm saying shit, and the chat's like, keep up, Titus. We've already answered those questions. Like I watched the genie guy like shapeshift,
right?
And I was like, whoa, where'd that come from? And you're on like hour 7, and we've seen the genie shapeshift 1,000 times already. And then I'm bitching about Von Kaiser, who is like a nobody on this game.
Yeah, he's just level 2.
Yeah, he's a level 2 guy, and I'm like, dude, we got to beat Von Kaiser. We got to do whatever it takes to beat Von Kaiser. And you're like, I beat Von Kaiser 4 hours ago. Yeah, but I wanted to come support you, but then I was also like, I don't know how TJ's going to feel me just popping into his apartment at midnight.
Oh, that was funny.
Unannounced.
That was good. Titus, this guy gets it points too. My mom texted me like 100 times. She was like, love that Titus guy. What a nice guy.
There you go. I get it. Yeah, I don't know.
Brandon Walker, nowhere to be found.
Brandon Walker did not show up, but I did. Yeah, dude, that was freaking awesome. But then then I started getting jealous, and I was like, dude, I want to play old school video games on a live stream.
Set it up.
We got to set that up. So, all right, thank you to Jason Timpf. Thank you to everybody listening, watching. Basketball season might be here. We're officially in preseason mode. It's October. That's preseason. yeah, I'm fired up. We're gonna do a lot more basketball shows on this program moving forward. But yeah, thank you for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe and all that good stuff, and we will see you on Thursday.